All right, so we just went over screenplay formatting 101. And so now what I want to do is I want to dive a little bit deeper into some of those basic comments and concepts that were just noted in that previous video. Okay, and so what I like to do is I like to break down screenplay formatting into the big four. Okay, so when we talk about the big four, and this is just something I've heard from another screenwriting educator, and I loved it so much. So the big four is something that we're going to use to describe our big four concepts, which are scene headers, they are scene action, character headers, and dialogue. Okay, so we're going to go through each of those four. And what's really great is that if you understand these four concepts, scene headers, scene action, character headers, and dialogue, if you understand these four major concepts, you're going to understand everything really you need to know to get off the ground running and start writing your script. Okay, if you know these four things, you're going to be in a really good spot to start writing. Okay, everything else is nice to know and good, and you might have them as things come up, but if you know these four, you're off to a really good start. Okay, so let's start with scene headers. Okay, so this is the very first thing that you need to start a scene, right? And last class we just finished talking about scenes and what are they. Okay, so this is also known as a slug line, but essentially a scene header is where are we? Right? Where are we and when are we? It's our setting. And if you remember from your English lit classes from high school, you know that setting just isn't only place, it's also time. And so when we think of our scene headers, you can think of it as your setting, time and place of your scene. Okay? So with your scene headers, they're written in all caps. This is important, right? When we're talking about formatting, we want to make sure that we get these capitalization pieces correct because it'll make a big difference. People will notice if it's wrong. I will notice if it's wrong. So make sure when you're doing your scene headers that it's written in all caps. Okay? So there's three major parts to a scene header. Okay? There's the location, inside or outside, otherwise known as interior, INT period, or exterior, EXT period. Okay, this is important for your director of photography. This is important for your lighting crew, your electrical crew, because they need to know where is our equipment going? Where is the camera being set up? Is it being set up indoors? Do I have access to outlets, right? What kind of lighting do I have inside, right? Do I need to bring in extra because it's so dark? Is it exterior? Is it outside? Do I have a lot of natural light? Am I competing for time? Because once it hits sunset, I'm not going to have any more daylight to use, right? Or is this a night shoot and I have to wait until 7, 8, 9 o'clock before we can start shooting, right? So the first part is location, interior, INT period, or exterior, EXT period. And the best way I know to remember this is that it's an abbreviation, right? Because a lot of folks like to put dashes or just spaces and forget the periods. But since these are abbreviations, you want to use the periods, okay? INT period, EXT period, okay? One or the other, okay? The next part of the scene header is the particular place. So not just the inside or outside location, but the place that we're at. So is it a house? Is it a restaurant? Is it a school? Is it a bedroom? Where are we exactly? Right? So while we needed to know the interior and exterior for our camera department and our lighting department to know where we are as far as equipment goes, we need to know the particular place now as far as our production design goes, right? So our location scouts, our set painters, our, props masters, right? People who need to know what is the space that we're in, how is it dressed up, what does it look like, does it fit my characters, right? Where are we? Okay, so that's super important. And then the last part of the scene header is the time of day, right? So is it day, is it night, or is it later? Or moments later, right? So there's a few different things you can use for time of day. You'll see them come up. day, night, later, moments later, continuous. These are your main ones. These are really the only ones you need to concern yourself with. Other ones might be dusk or dawn, or those are two other ones, but don't use them if you can avoid it, right? And if your story really doesn't need to be set during dusk or dawn, it's not always worth it to put it, because then you're just unintentionally putting restraints on your crew, because now they absolutely have to shoot at dusk or dawn, which is a very limited amount of time. And so you don't necessarily want to put that restraint on the crew unless you really have to and it's important to the story. Okay. So the main ones you need to worry about are day, night, later, continuous, moments later. Those are the only ones you really need to worry about. And it's pretty straightforward. Day, it's daylight hours. Night, it's nighttime hours. Okay. Later means we're in the same interior or exterior, we're in the same location, we're in the same particular place, but it's just a different time. It's later in the day. We've seen a transition of time. Maybe we saw someone studying for a big exam really hard, and then it's flash forward 3 hours later, it's 3 in the morning, and now they're fast asleep on their desk. Okay, so that's an example of later. Now, moments later is something briefer. It's moments, it's literal seconds. So they're studying at their desk and we cut to them drinking a glass of water. There wasn't a glass of water on there, so maybe they went and grabbed it from the sink, right? So it's a very quick passage of time. You can think of it like a jump cut, okay? And then continuous means that it's one scene is carrying over to the next. So the motion of one scene is carrying over to the next scene. So if my character starts in the bedroom and we see them traverse to the bathroom, we're technically in a new particular place, so our scene header is going to change, but the time is continuous, right? There's no interruption in time. Okay, so those are our 5 major times for our scene headers that we're going to use. Okay, the key to your scene header is to keep it short and simple. We don't want it super convoluted. We don't want it to be interior, Rebecca's bedroom on the 4th house on the left side of the street in the small town of Gilbert. We don't want all of that detail. Okay, we just really don't. All right. We want to keep it short, sweet, to the point, so it's easy enough to understand. But we also want to make sure that we're being consistent. So if you show a location represented by such and such terms and you're going back to that location later, make sure you're using the same phrasing. Okay, you need consistency. All right, so let's look at some examples. So our first example is interior, int period, space, Julie's house, space, hyphen, dash, whatever, space, bedroom, space, hyphen, night. Okay, so what I've done here is, this is something new that I haven't talked about yet, but you see that I have my interior, exterior, I have Julie's house, which is our particular location, and then I go one step deeper and say bedroom. Okay, so a space inside the house, right, which you can totally do. You could also just do interior, Julie's bedroom, space, night, okay, with the hyphens, okay? So you can do that shortcut or you can extend it. This first example can be really useful if you know you're going to be jumping to a lot of different spaces, a lot of different rooms in the house. But that's just an example. Only extend it one more step. Only extend it one more step for one more particular place. Okay, don't get crazy and do Julie's house, bedroom, nightstand, so on and so forth. Okay, so don't make it super long. Okay. Interior, Julie's house, bathroom, continuous. So she's going from her bedroom to her bathroom, all in one fluid motion. Another example is we have interior, exterior, car, desert, day. Okay, so this is a blending of two, and cars are very unique situations. Okay, cars are very unique situations. So we have interior, exterior, which means a lot of times we're cutting back and forth from being inside the car to being outside the car, um, right? Cars driving through the desert, right? We're seeing inside the car, outside the car, but it's still daytime. Okay, so that's the way you can do it. All right, so here are some more examples. Interior professor's house, day. Exterior college campus, night. Interior student's car, later. Exterior student's car, continuous. Interior DMV, moments later. Okay, so I could make my own little short scene, short script with all these different scenes that I have, right? Um, the key thing I want you to remember with your scene header is just check out the formatting one more time. So it's all capital letters, each line is all caps. We have our, right, our exterior, interior, right, our location, inside, outside, 3-letter abbreviation, right, INT period, EXT period, particular place, professor's office, college campus, student's car, DMV, space, hyphen, space, right, moments later, continuous later, day, night. Now, like I mentioned with interior, exterior, I like to use the mnemonic, right? The reminder that it's an abbreviation, so it gets a period right at the end of it. Okay. Now, this isn't a period. This is a dash, okay? And there's space on either side of it in each of these examples. And the thing I like to use to remember that is that time, when we talk about time, I'm going to meet this person between 8 and 2 p.m., right? 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., or from 2 to 4 p.m., right? We have the 2 and the hyphen and the 4, 2 to 4 p.m., right? So you can kind of think of time because it's leading into our time, right? Our time slot. You can think of it like that. So use the hyphen as time, right? It's my time, 2 to 4, 5 to 6. Okay, that's a way to remember this. Keep those spaces though. Okay, the only one that doesn't need a space is right after because it's an abbreviation. All right. Our next one, our next big four, we just finished the slug line, the scene header, right? That's how we start a scene. The next one we need is scene action, okay? So scene action is also known as scene description, okay? So what's important to remember about scene action or scene description is that it's written in the present tense and active voice, okay? What should be sounding familiar, right? This should be sounding familiar, present tense active voice, because this is the type of writing, this is the style of writing I've been asking you to write your treatments in, right? So with your treatments, I've been pounding away at present tense active voice so that this becomes more effortless as you go into your script writing, okay? Because when we're writing our movies in script format, we are writing it as the story unfolds on screen, okay? Which is the present tense and active voice, okay? Now, your scene action is used to describe the environment as well as the actions and movements of the characters in the scene. Okay, so you want to give a little sense of the environment, a little sense of space, because this adds texture to your story. This gives us a sense of where are we? What type of school is this? Right? What type of bedroom is this? What type of house is this? Is it a creepy house or is it a normal suburban house? Right? You want to give us a little bit of context, right? But the difference being, from a novel to a screenplay is you're being very succinct with it. You're being very efficient with your descriptions and your scene action. You're not going into a lot of superfluous detail like you would with a novel, okay? These should be short, concise paragraphs, only 3 to 4 lines long before starting a new one. So you might have like half a page of scene action, sometimes, not all the time, but it shouldn't just be a half a page of dense text with no paragraph breaks, okay? Any scene action paragraph should only be about 3 or 4 lines long, should be pretty short. You want to break it up. So if I have half a page, I actually want like 3 or 4 different smaller paragraphs, okay? So that's something, and that really comes down to just making it an easier, more enjoyable read for your reader, okay? Because before a script gets made, it's got to get read, okay? So what are you writing in these paragraphs? You should only be describing actions taking place on screen and not what the character's thinking or imagining, okay? So write what's on screen, Okay, so if we're seeing it happen on screen, if we're hearing it happen on screen, that's what needs to be in your script. You're doing everything that we see or hear, right? So even if you think like, oh, like these two characters are just having a casual conversation about chips and salsa. I don't know. They're having a casual conversation about chips and salsa and whatever. Um, you don't just put character A and B have casual conversation about chips and salsa. No, you actually have to show them talking about chips and salsa. Say character A, what do you think of this salsa? Character B, like, I don't know, I've had better. Character C, whatever. Right? You actually have to show every single line of dialogue if we're hearing it and seeing it on screen. Okay. So it kind of goes both ways. It's only what we hear and see on screen, but it's everything that we see and hear on screen. Okay. It's not what's in the minds of the characters. So it's not in internal monologues or feelings, things like that, things that we can't see or hear. Now, sometimes we get around this by doing voiceover, right? And we get to see what's in the minds of the characters, but that's not typical. Okay. And it shouldn't be relied on, right? We want to make sure we're conveying character through their actions and their dialogue. Okay. So very different from novels. All right, so here's an example of some scene action, right? Using what we just talked about, present tense, active voice, environment, actions, movements, keeping it short and succinct, okay? Not what they're thinking about, but only what we see and hear. So the example is huddled under a blanket with only the glow from the TV lighting the living room. Sally shoves popcorn in her mouth as she nervously stares at the TV screen. Okay, so I do a couple things, right? I show what do we see? We see her huddled under a blanket. Okay, so that gives us a feel, that gives us a vibe, gives us a sense that maybe she's a little scared, right? She's using the blanket as a security blanket, right? Or she's really cold, either way. But we know that it's dark, right? Only the glow from the TV lighting the living room. So we get a sense of space, right? So the glow from the TV is lighting the room. And then Sally shoves popcorn in her mouth. So shoves popcorn, right? This is that present tense active voice that we're talking about. Sally shoves popcorn in her mouth as she nervously stares at the TV screen. So she is anxious. So she's probably watching a scary movie or something like that, right? All right, so take a second. Are we all good? How do we feel? We've just talked about scene headers and scene action. Does this make sense so far? Okay, go ahead and pause for a second, rewind the video, and go back to the first part of this video or this part with the action and just review it real quick. Okay, take a breather, take a break, and we'll go ahead and come back in our next video and talk about character headers and dialogue and then finish up with some examples. All right, stay tuned.